Okay, let's dive into this. If you've ever tried to coax a plant out of a tiny little seed, you already know it is a journey of like 1,000 micro decisions. You're constantly watching, constantly tweaking. Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're opening up this absolutely fascinating, highly detailed gardening journal by an author named Ang. We're zeroing in on a specific entry that's all about the delicate art of cultivating seedlings. Ang has been meticulously documenting this whole process, and today we get to explore that super crucial moment in a young plant's life, where its environment and our intervention just perfectly collide. Entry 971. Just think about that number for a second. This isn't your casual, weekend hobbyist journal. No way. This is part 971 in an ongoing, incredibly methodical gardening saga. Published on July 30th, 2026, this specific entry really highlights the epic scale of Ang's dedication. I mean, imagine the sheer volume of patience it takes to write almost 1,000 entries just about dirt and seeds. It's honestly a brilliant testament to how much we can learn just by watching nature do its thing, day by day, step by step, and carefully recording the exact variables that lead to a win or a total flop.
And this brilliantly illustrates the star of today's micro case study, cucumis-melo. That's the formal botanical name for the honey melon, for those keeping track. In the earlier stages of this journal, these seeds were literally just starting out, while now they've newly sprouted, and they've just been really carefully transplanted. So we're looking at this super fragile, highly critical window of time. I mean, at this stage, every single environmental factor plays a massive role in whether this honey melon is going to thrive and actually give us fruit or just wither away.
But hey, it's time to celebrate a major milestone first. Since that recent transplant, these seedlings have pushed upward, they're growing taller, and they've successfully revealed their cotyledons. If you're a grower, you know those are those vital first pairs of seed leaves that pop up on a sprouting plant. It's such a huge turning point. It basically means the seed has successfully used up all its internal stored energy just to bust through the surface of the soil, and now it's gearing up to photosynthesize and start feeding itself. It's a really exciting moment.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Ang's precise diagnosis of a sudden environmental crisis. Because despite that initial success with the first leaves, Ang notes, and I quote, "The microclimate where we place these seedlings lacks the full sunlight exposure needed by this honey melon." It's just such a great observation of the immediate surroundings, right? The plant is essentially talking to the gardener here, and Ang realizes right away that the specific little microclimate they chose for the transplant is fundamentally failing to give this seedling the light it's absolutely screaming for. So how exactly is the plant communicating that it's freaking out? Well, leaning seedling stems. Because the microclimate is seriously lacking adequate sunlight, these fragile, newly formed stems are actually bending. They're stretching desperately toward whatever ambient light source they can find. There's a scientific term for this, phototropism. It's this wild mechanism where plants literally alter their cellular growth to physically move toward the light. Super fascinating, right? But in this context, it's a huge red flag. If we just leave this unchecked, that phototropic leaning is going to severely weaken those stems. They'll get leggy, frail, and it could totally compromise the entire future of this honey melon.
So the crucial point is, the clock is absolutely ticking. How do we respond to this crisis before it's too late? Ang breaks down two proposed horticultural interventions to save these leaning plants. Option A is a local adjustment. Simply turn the seedling tray around so it faces the opposite direction. The idea here is that those leaning stems will naturally reverse their growth to reach for the light on the other side, which kind of corrects the lean, right? Then there's option B, which is a much more drastic relocation. Pick up the entire tray, move it completely out of its current microclimate, and put it somewhere new that already has the full-on sunlight exposure this cucumis-melo actually needs.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a beautifully simple, scientific protocol. Ang's whole method can really be distilled down into 3 super clear steps. First, you've got to carefully observe the physical signs, like catching those leaning stems early before the damage is done. Second, you make a deliberate adjustment to the microclimate. You either rotate that tray or you completely relocate it. And finally, step 3, wait to see the results. It's this perfect, continuous feedback loop of observation, action, and patient analysis. Honestly, it's the engine that drives literally any successful scientific or gardening endeavor. Wrapping up the entry, Ang leaves us on a bit of a scientific cliffhanger, writing, "Let's see how this goes in the coming days." And it naturally makes you wonder, right? Which approach would you choose for your seedlings? Would you try the subtle rotation of approach A to force the plant to correct itself? Or would you go with the bold relocation of approach B to give it exactly what it needs right this second? This meticulous journal entry isn't just about honey melons. It's a pretty great reminder of how hyper-aware we need to be of the environments we create and live in ourselves.
Whether you're nurturing a fragile little cotyledon on a windowsill or managing the complex microclimates of your own daily routines, how quickly do you notice when things start leaning the wrong way? And more importantly, what adjustments will you make to bring back the light?